Hey everybody, it's Darkland765 and welcome back to more Pokemon Crystal Nuzlocke. In the last episode, we took on this gym here, took on Jasmine, and man, what a battle that was. If you haven't seen it, seriously, go back. If you missed an episode or whatever, go back and check that out. It's well worth it. And in this episode, well, yeah, I gotta stop beating around the bush. I failed the challenge. It's over. There's nothing more to do, but I wanted to give a sort of a final episode, a sort of little retrospective on all the work that went into this series, because this series was a big one for me. And the reason for this is multiple reasons. Number one, I wanted to not just come out of hiatus and then immediately stop uploading again because the series was over. And another reason was because I really wanted there to be more to the series, or at least there was a few things that I wanted to talk about, at least in sort of like the behind the scenes kind of stuff, and I feel like now is a better time than any, right? So this episode is just going to be sort of a look back at what I've done throughout the series, a little behind the scenes type look, and if that doesn't interest you, you can stop watching. But I had a lot of fun with this series, and I wanted to share a lot of that joy and excitement with you. One thing I wanted to talk about was specifically the previous episode. I realized at the very beginning of the episode, I was talking a lot about the failure condition, how I was updating the failure condition, and I cannot remember if I mentioned that before, but that was a plan. That was the plan for a long time, was that if I wipe, then it's over. I think maybe I brought it up around Whitney, but I don't know if I ever officially updated the rules after that and mentioned it later. I'm not sure, but anyway, one thing that I realized is because I really hammered that point home, I didn't want to make it seem like I was throwing. And that was one thing I noticed in editing. I was like, wow, I'm really talking about this on the very episode that I failed on. So maybe people will think that I threw by taking on this gym before I was ready. But no. I can contest that. I was talking about for several episodes how this was the gym that I wanted to do next. Doing stuff like talking about, oh, what's my strategy? Oh, I don't have something that can fight a steel type. What am I gonna do? Oh wait, no, I have Chunky. I was talking about it for episodes, and I thought that because it's the first gym that we encountered. I guess it's not the first gym that we encountered, but it's the first gym that we encountered off to this direction. I thought, okay, well, that must be the easy one. That must be the easier one to take on. And I thought that I would have enough levels because I thought it would be easier, and that was not the case. So, yeah, I just wanted to hammer home that I didn't throw. And that's the basic point of that. Another thing I wanted to talk about was why I kept saying that the series was hard to do, because I feel like in the moment I was never really able to capture why the series was difficult to do, and I kept mentioning that it was hard to get into the mindset of it. One of the biggest things that made it difficult was that the game is not easy, but it's also, there's a lot of stuff going on at any given point in time, despite it being very slow. So if you're walking through a route and there's, very basic, boring battles going on, it's hard to come up with commentary for it because there's so little to look at on screen, but also it's really hard to sort of, it's hard to improvise, because when there's nothing going on screen, you have to find something else to talk about, and that was where the big challenge for the series came from, was I didn't know what to talk about, and the episodes that I found the best were the ones where I was just talking about what I'd been doing for the past little while, and I guess that's one thing that came out of the hiatuses, was I did a lot of things within the long hiatuses, but the hiatuses were caused by the fact that it was really hard to get into the brain mindset of being yeah, I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes of my life saying basically nonsense to you guys because I don't have anything to talk about. And so it was really, whenever an episode came out that was slow and I wasn't really talking really well, I felt really bad about it. And there was a couple episodes where I actually just straight up scrapped them. Whenever I scrap an episode, I specifically reset my save so that no progress is gained with off screen, because I don't want that. But I had a specific rule that if I got into a battle then I would have to keep that recording. Like, if I spent, like, 10 minutes walking around town and maybe getting into, like, wild battles, that was kind of where I drew the line, where it was like, yeah, wild battles, they're easy, I don't have to worry about those. But if I got into, like, an actual trainer battle, I wouldn't cut that. That episode would have to go up. And that was kind of my ruling. But there were a few episodes where I started recording, I got like 5 to 10 minutes in, and I just didn't like the episode, and nothing was happening, and I made no progress, and I just decided to scrap it. So that was very disheartening when it came to making the series. Another thing is that I gave myself the very arbitrary rule, and this was one of the biggest issues, was that I said, okay, I want this series to be in real time. This is a game where day and night, where there's a real-time day-night cycle. Wouldn't it be cool if I kept to that into real life? So whenever we did something that was like a daily occurrence, like I think we found, like, what's her name, Frida Friday or whatever, it was actually Friday, the day I was recording that, and, you know, whenever it hit 6 o'clock in real life, the game would hit 6 o'clock and it would turn to night. And it's really hard to get good Pokemon at night, because they're the nighttime Pokemon. You get, like, tons of Zubats and that sort of thing. So I had to record earlier than 6 o'clock, but 6 o'clock is not that late into the night, so it was really tough to find time to record, especially because sometimes I'm just the most ready right after dinner, which is after 6 o'clock. So yeah, those are the sort of reasons why the series, I kept saying that the series was hard to make. But enough about that sort of stuff. You want to hear about the actual behind the scenes of, like, stuff that went into the videos. So I do want to talk about the fact that the very first episode, took 3 tries to make, I believe. I got to the end of the first episode, like, not even the end, I just got, like, halfway through the first episode, the first recording, and I was like, my commentary sucks, this video sucks, I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm not ready for this, I'm gonna restart, and then I did it a second time, and I ran into the same problem, and I was like, okay, I really gotta establish that I am doing good. I got to establish a solid first episode, and the first episode was the episode that you guys actually ended up seeing. The recordings of the first couple tries are lost. I deleted them. I don't want to see them anymore. And yeah, so the first episode actually took a couple tries to make, but once I got there, I think I recorded a few episodes in one recording session. Yeah, so I actually recorded I recorded 5 episodes in one day, which, looking back on it, I cannot do that with this series. It got to the point where I couldn't even record more than 1 episode a day, but in this first recording, I recorded 5 whole episodes. So that was pretty insane for me, just because they were, I don't know, I was just kind of on a roll that day. And I felt really good after the first episode. I got through the actual first episode. I was like, yeah, this is good. I'm good with that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was the training montages. So I mentioned this during the series, but the reason why all of the why all the training sessions were all sped up instead of just cut out entirely was because I wanted to keep some level of integrity with those parts. Because, like, when you're doing off-screen training and you're cutting it all out, you can just, like, a Pokemon could die, and you can just be like, well, I guess I'll just revive it because I don't want that Pokemon to die. So what I was doing was I was having it be, like, a continuous thing. You could see the progress of all the Pokemon, you can see everything that happened, the health was consistent from, you know, thing to the next. So I wanted to have that level of authenticity, and that's why all of the episodes where there was something sped up. But I also wanted to give the option to skip it. And man, if only YouTube had, a thing that you could click on to be like, yeah, here's the next part of the video. Like, if you want to skip it, you can click this. But if you want to watch through it and make sure you want to keep me honest, you can do that too. But, you know, you can click on this thing to go, man, if only YouTube had a feature like that, wouldn't that be absolutely insane? So I put text on screen, and that was my solution to that. But yeah, that it was for posterity. I wanted to make sure that, like, you could see visibly that I wasn't cheating, and that's very important to me, is, like, integrity. Even though, like, I feel like no one was gonna call me out, but I wanted to give that a little hint of authenticity to make sure that, like, yes, I am doing this. And another thing was I never sped it up. Like, I never used the in-game thing to speed up the game, and that is why the most recent one took like 4 hours to do. Oh man, that was a rough recording. I guess another thing I could talk about is how this series works, like how I record this series. So I mentioned before the speed up button on the thing. What I was talking about was actually the emulator I was using. I don't have any means to record actual gameplay from a Game Boy, so I had no way of recording the game other than using an emulator. So that was my option. So I was using Visual Boy Advance, and legally I'm not allowed to condone using emulator, but moving on, we have the recording software that I use. At first I was using OBS, and then a few episodes in, I realized that I don't like OBS, and the program I was using before, XSplit, is just better. I gave OBS multiple chances, and it failed me on all accounts. It's too hardware intensive for my computer, and especially the graphics card. Like, it uses your graphics card hard, and it puts so much strain on it, whereas XSplit just runs so smoothly. And another thing is that XSplit gives tiny file sizes. Like, I don't know what compression algorithm they got, but like 3 hours of recording. Let's see if I can find a 3-hour recording in my files here. Just give me a second. Here we go. We got the 3-hour recording was just under 2 gigabytes. 2 gigabytes for 3.5 hours worth of footage. Like, that's insane. That is an insanely small thing. Here's an hour and a half. About half a gigabyte. Like, it's crazy. Absolutely insane. XSplit has amazing file sizes, and it blows my mind to this day that they can do that. And then for audio, I use Audacity. And for Audacity, I do a little bit of audio editing, but very little. What I do is I find an empty region of audio, and I do the noise removal thing. So you find an empty region of audio, take out the background noise, and then remove the background noise from the whole video using that. And then I apply compression to it so that the louds get quieter and the quiets get louder, so that everything is roughly the same volume. And then that way, the audio doesn't get too loud, doesn't get too quiet at any given point in time. It's really great. Audacity is good for audio editing. And yeah, so those are the programs that I use to record. And then the program that I use to edit is Sony Vegas. I've been using Sony Vegas for a few years, and I can't use anything else probably. I mean, I could probably learn something else, but Sony Vegas is just my jam right now. And also, I can't afford anything else right now because I've already got Sony Vegas, so why would I want to buy another thing? So a few things about editing. I have in my notes here a few little tidbits about what things were and how they happened. I have no idea what I was talking about, so I'm just gonna improvise here. You may by now be familiar with the song that I used in every episode, which I guess I'll play a little clip of it. Well, it wasn't every episode, but, you know, every episode where there was a Pokemon death, I used that little music box song. That song is from Mario and Luigi Partners in Time. Right around the beginning of the series, I actually just finished watching Sugar Conroy's Let's Play of Partners in Time. And when I say beginning of the series, I mean the recording of the series, because it took a while before the first episode actually came out. I was watching Sugar Conroy's Partners in Time Let's Play, and I love that song at the end, but the thing is that is a Japan-only song. The song, I believe, is titled The End, but it only happened after the credits in the Japanese version, and I don't know why they removed it from every other version, because it's so good. It has it really gave off the perfect vibe that I was going for with this series, was that if a Pokemon dies, it's sort of melancholy, but also kind of, you know, happy. It's like a sad parting but it's like a bittersweet parting. Like, you're sad to see the person go, but you're happy that you spent time with them. That's sort of the vibe that I got from the song, and I had to put it in because that's the exact vibe that I wanted to go for with the Pokemon deaths. So that's what song that was. Another major thing about the editing was you noticed that sidebar that was there through the entire series. That sidebar is, believe it or not, it is, each time the sidebar changes, it's a completely different image. So I use Microsoft Paint because Paint is really good at doing pixel things. So what I did was I took that text border that's the in-game, I took a screenshot of that, and then I made this sort of sidebar where it had the team on top and then a little area for text on bottom so that the text didn't have to interfere with the video. I thought that would be a pretty neat thing to have so that the text, never overlapped with something important. Which I probably won't do for any other future series, but who knows? We'll see what I do about that. But one thing you may not realize is that every single time the team changes, every time I take a Pokemon out of the box, I put a Pokemon in, every time the Pokemon dies, it's a completely different image. I tried to make it so that there was like a bunch of placeholders so that I could just swap out the placeholders for another image, and I couldn't make that work. So instead, I just decided, I'm just gonna make it a new image every time, and that really ended up working pretty well, actually. But the thing is it required that every time I changed the team in some way, I needed to create a new image. So I would just do it in Paint. It was a very simple process doing all that. But you may be wondering, how many team changes were there across the whole series? And the answer to that is, there were 104. I had to make 104 images for the sidebar. And I would say that a combined, like, the time it took to make all of those, plus the time it took to make the first one, that all of the future ones were based off of, it probably was a combined, 5-6 hours, because each one would take, a minute or two to make, and there was 100 of them, so that would be, well, it's actually not that much. But then, of course, you add on the couple hours that I spent doing the first one, and then you add on the time, there was actually a point, I got 8 episodes or something into the series, and I realized, I don't like the way this is looking, it's like a pixel off or something, so I decided to move everything by 1 pixel, and so I had to go back to every previous episode, because I didn't upload the first episode, I think, until the 13th episode was done. I believe that's the case. So I was uploading, I got to, halfway through the series and realized I didn't like the way it was looking, so I had to redo all the images. Don't make my mistakes, everyone. Just try and find a way to make it so you can just swap out placeholders. It makes things so much easier. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was a couple of the editing bits that I had in the series. So you may be familiar with whenever I said something that I found kind of funny and there was a little image accompaniment, little animation, that was all done within Sony Vegas. You could probably tell because it's very simple. It's not actually animated. There's no special effects. So I really enjoyed that, and my favorite, this series gave birth to one of my favorite editing bits that I've ever done, and that was the episode 8, I believe it was, whatever episode it was where we went into the well. That was so good. That bit with the Team Rocket guy going into the well and the old man falling down, I watched that, and it still blows my mind that I did something like that. I laugh at it, and I made it. I think it's funny, and I made it. So, it really goes to show, this series had a lot of good bits. There was a lot of other small things, the guy surfing on the Ekans. That took a while to make. It took a while to find a good picture of Ekans that would work for that, and I honestly didn't think the Ekans that I chose worked very well, but I did it anyway, and that was a good bit. That took a while to make, and so yeah, those are just a few of my favorite editing bits from the series. And honestly, editing the series was a lot of fun because the way that I improvise when I don't have something to talk about is I just talk nonsense. And sometimes nonsense is just funny to put visual accompaniment to. Like the freaking think think bit with the brain falling down. I was like, all right, I'm bored. I'm just gonna give this brain physics, or at least try to fake these brains having physics. And that took, like, I think an hour to do because I just wanted to do it, and I did it. I really love this series. It was good. It was a good time. And then I think while of course we're talking about video, like about the editing bits that you do notice, there was actually a lot of editing bits that you probably didn't notice. And it's as an editor, it's just as important for you to notice the things that I want you to notice, but also not notice the things that I didn't want you to notice. For example, the first time this came about was the Whitney fight. During the Whitney fight, I actually tried to raise the tension a little bit, because it was a very tense fight for me in the moment. My heart was beating really fast, and I wanted to really try and capture that with the editing, and I figured out the best way to do that is to just very slightly make the game audio louder, so the very intense music that was playing takes up more of your hearing, and it's more overbearing, and it being overbearing makes it more tense, and that was really what I was trying to capture there. And I did that a couple times, I think it was Koga, during the Koga fight. Like, I was going into Koga thinking, oh, this will be easy, I won't have that hard of a time. I don't know if his name is actually Koga, that might be Red and Blue, I'm not actually sure. But anyway, in that video, the fight started out, I was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty confident that I can handle this just fine. And then about a little bit into the fight, I suddenly realized how actually strong they are and how kind of screwed I am. And so I slowly had it fade to louder music, so like the game audio got louder again as soon as things started getting tense. And it was just small little bits like that you probably didn't notice. And one thing that I'm really proud of was an editing bit that, like, maybe I want to say that it went over people's heads, and that was episode 17. I noted at the very beginning of the episode that the game audio just didn't record, so I just recreated all of the sounds. And I actually did that. I have proof. It's on screen right now. This is the editing file. You can see over here, like, here's where, like, text boxes go by. Here's some audio, like some, like, battle audio. It was it was hard. That took, I think, a good 10 to 15 hours of just editing time, and it was very tedious because a lot of the sounds were the same, and it took a long time to find those sound effects, because the way I got the sound effects was I had a debug ROM which had a sound test in it. So I was using that sound test to record all of the sounds that I needed. So it was really hard to find what the sounds were supposed to sound like, and there's a lot of small little things you don't notice. Like, I didn't notice until that video that the hit sound, the sound that a move makes when it hits, is different than the sound that it makes when a move is super effective. But yeah, like, it's a different sound, and I'm really happy with how seamless it was. Like, I spent so long just studying the very small intricacies, like how long a sound goes before it fades, how long does the music take to fade out. Like, I put a lot of effort, probably more effort than it was worth, into making that episode good, but I'm a sucker for consistency. I tend to notice the small little things that are like, oh, that's slightly different than you did it before, and I don't really like that. So I try my best to make sure that every episode, everything that I can make the same is the same. And that was the case with episode 17, right? Like, it had no sound, but I wanted it to have sound. So I went through the very tedious Bellsprout Tower, where there was a bunch of the same move being used over and over again. But it ended up working out really well, and I'm really happy with it. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the thumbnails for the series, which were a lot of fun to make for this series. And honestly, like, looking back on some of the thumbnails, like, they're just good thumbnails, if you ask me. Like, I think they very well describe what happened in the episode, or like they relate to the title. I think episode 12 in particular, that thumbnail was a good one because that took a long time to do because I had to copy all of those Pokemon and put them all in there. And that was oh man, that took a while. That one also took a long time. But I'm really proud of it because I think it turned out looking fantastic. But yeah, like there's so much little details in the series. Like one that that was really subtle that you may not have noticed, especially because you've only seen it on YouTube. But episode 9, right behind Bugsy, you can see a little bit of the rival peeking out. You can see him peeking out behind Bugsy, which you may not have noticed, because Bugsy is so front and center, and it's a YouTube thumbnail. Who's gonna look at the YouTube thumbnail and be like, whoa, that's a cool little subtle thing? And just those sorts of things, those things really give me joy. The sorts of things that you just don't notice, you just don't pay attention to. And those are my favorite little editing bits. If you want to know what program I use to make the thumbnails, I used to use a program called Pixlr. It was an online free photo editor, which I hold as being just like a couple steps under Photoshop. Like, it's very, very good for anything you need it to do. However, that's the old version of Pixlr that I'm talking about that's good. The old version of Pixlr ran on Flash, and since, Flash is no longer going to be a thing, they updated it to HTML, but with updating it, they removed so much. They removed so much functionality. It's just not nearly as good as it used to be. So I spent a long time trying to figure out how am I going to replace this, and I found another editor, and it's kind of good, but it's not the same as Pixlr. And so ultimately, the solution I came to was there was actually a program called Flashpoint, which is a program that is dedicated to preserving old Flash games and old Flash programs that will no longer function because of, Flash not existing anymore. So I got Flashpoint, and sure enough, Pixlr was on there, and I cannot say how excited I was to find out that Pixlr was on there, because Pixlr is so good, and it does everything I needed to do so perfectly, and it makes my thumbnails super good. I'm so happy with the fact that it's there, because, like, it's more than just putting an image on the screen, right? Like, it's, I have to move the image around, I have to rotate some of it, I have to Photoshop arms onto a Kakuna, and, that sort of thing. And the last thing is put a drop shadow and a bevel effect. So what I do with my thumbnails is I have a drop shadow with the default settings, except it's 100%, it's not transparent at all, it's 0% transparency. It's 100% opacity, that's the word for it. It's 100% opacity, so it just gives this nice little black outline underneath it. And then I put a black outline around it with the outer glow effect. I use the outer glow effect to make a black outline. It defaults to blue, but I set it to black. And then on top of that, I put a bevel. And so you get this nice little sheen up at the top that doesn't intrude on the actual image of the whatever I'm putting this onto. It doesn't intrude on that, but also it creates this nice sheen on it without intruding into the image. It's really nice, and I really like my thumbnail style. I've really got it set to be something that I'm really proud of finding and that sort of thing. I think the only time it doesn't work is in episode 28, where I have the hand wiping through the swimmers. I don't think it works too well there. I was debating whether or not I should even use it with that, and I was just like, you know what, screw it. No one's gonna notice, so I just went ahead and did it. But with that, that's about everything that I wanted to talk about in terms of the behind the scenes of the series. I had a lot of fun making the series. It was very long, and like I said, it was very tough to make because it was just hard to come up with commentary, and I felt really bad whenever the commentary wasn't very good. But I'm glad that in the end I got as far as I did, because honestly I wasn't expecting to make it past Whitney, and once I got past Whitney I wasn't expecting to make it past the next guy. Like every episode after Whitney was a challenge, and it was only a matter of time before one of those challenges was too big for me to be prepared for. I'm really happy with how far I got, and honestly, reasonably, I shouldn't have made it that far. And I'm also very happy with the editing, and I'm very happy that this series had fan art. That was funny. That was from my friend Nick Mew. I think I've made a couple videos with him before. He's a great, fantastic guy, and it was fun to see that. He just sent it out of nowhere. It was like, whoa, nice. But yeah, with that, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you so much for watching this series. Thank you for sticking with me all this time, and I really hope that you look forward to the next series. It's going to be a bit before the next series, because this is the biggest undertaking I've taken yet. It's already recorded, but the editing is going to be so intense that it won't be out for a while, so look forward to that. And with all of that, thank you guys so very much for watching this. If you like this video, if you like any of the videos in this series, rate, comment, and subscribe. If you didn't, then don't. And I'll see you guys next time.